Phantasy Star Online 2, the Hunter. The Hunter is an all-around melee class that not only offers great damage output, but also offers great defensive support for how tanky they are. For a quick small example, Healing Guard, which upon a perfect guard restores your HP for yourself and nearby characters or party members. Quick disclaimer, this video is just a starter introduction to the Hunter, and absolutely not by any means a full guide. The Hunter can use swords, partisans, and wired lances. Every weapon has a main focus on building the gear gauge, but it's different for each weapon. For swords, normal attacks and photon arts fill the gear gauge. Depending on how many bars are filled, your damage could be increased, reduced charge time for weapon skills, or increased movement speed. Swords may be a bit slower compared to wired lances or partisans, but have hard-hitting photon arts and great AoE damage. Wired lances build the gear gauge with normal attacks and photon arts. The weapon has great single target ability with grabbing and grappling enemies, along with its AoE potential for having wide range. With the gear gauge maxed, your photon arts that grab will do a ton of damage. For partisans, this weapon is a bit more tricky to fill the gear gauge. You can either use the weapon action to guard that will fill the gear gauge, or more practically, by using a normal attack or photon art on the ground. You'll notice after a normal attack or photon art, your character performs a twirl that increases the gear gauge. It's notable that dodging or canceling this twirl animation will cease the gear gauge's increase. Mobbing is amazing using a partisan because of its wide swings. For single target enemies and bosses, the partisan excels as well, specifically performing combos with a photon art called Volgraptor, which in a future video I plan on going more in depth for the partisan wielding Hunter. The Hunter has a choice of two stances, Fury Stance and Guard Stance. Out of the two, personally, Fury Stance is a bit easier and very straightforward. With Fury Stance, you're given a passive damage boost for melee and ranged attacks to enemies. Guard Stance is the alternative, and of course when using Guard Stance renders Fury Stance inactive. However, with points in Advanced Guard Stance, you have the potential of granting a damage bonus that is actually more than Fury Stance. If you perform a successful perfect guard while Guard Stance is active, your damage potency increases by 50%, and as you can see with Fury Stance and its supporting skills, it only reaches up to 30%. As a Hunter main, between the two stances, you'll usually end up picking one of the stances over the other, just because there's not enough skill points at the time to maximize one or the other. Regardless of Fury Stance or Guard Stance, both have access to Charged Parry, which renders attacks against you while you're charging an attack to be a perfect guard. Getting a little bit into the Hunter skill tree, Healing Guard heals you and your characters around you upon a perfect guard. And yes, this means when you use Charged Parry, Healing Guard will proc as well. Iron Will is another Hunter skill that adds a chance of retaining 1 HP in the event you suffer from damage that could incapacitate you. Warcry can taunt enemies' attention to you, taking aggro. Automate that procs when your HP falls below 50%. Hunter Physique that reduces damage and prevents you from being launched or knocked back by enemies. With some of the important skills highlighted, make sure you're feeding your mag melee weapons to create an S-mag. Remember to also keep an eye on dexterity that increases when you feed your mag's melee weapons. Level 4 star furniture can be used to reduce the mag's dex. A decent subclass for the Hunter and complementary to melee damage would be the Fighter. However, as this is a beginner intro video, I don't want to overload you with too much info and will possibly make an intermediate Hunter video sometime in the future. Overall, I ranked the Hunter class to intermediate level. Though at first glance, this class may seem kinda mindless, but in actuality it involves more management to play effectively, especially at higher levels. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this intro to the Hunter class, and make sure to check out my other class intro guides coming in the future. As always, see you on the next one.